Hello and welcome to Release 12i Oracle Purchasing Fundamentals Training. My name is Kabir Khan and I'm a highly experienced Oracle consultant with over a decade of experience in implementing Oracle ERP solutions with worldwide organizations. Oracle Purchasing is a central module in Oracle Advanced Procurement Suite, which provides the functionality to complete the ordering process of Procure to Pay lifecycle. Ordering is generally a term used to indicate a business flow that results in purchase of goods or services. Oracle Purchasing provides a rich store of policy and supplier information, a robust workbench for buying professionals, and consolidated visibility into the spending. Oracle Purchasing streamlines the procurement by executing routine transactions without intervention, making buyers more productive while enforcing compliance. This results in time savings and higher productivity and gives procurement professionals more time for exploring new savings opportunities. In terms of implementing Oracle Purchasing, you've got to set up and implement a couple of other base modules. So what are those base modules? As you could see out here, I've listed down all the base modules that you must do it, and I have basically listed down the key setups you must complete in order to start setting up purchasing module. So you've got to start with setting up the general ledger module. As part of general ledger module, you've got to set up something called as your company's accounting structure. Now, before you set up your company accounting structure, you've got to define your legal entities, or legal entities are nothing but your company's legal registration in the company it's operating, and then define the ledger or accounting ledger associated with those legal entities. Once you have done that, then you define the values for those accounting structures. So all that you do it as a part of your general ledger module. Once you have done with general ledger, then you either go on to inventory module or you set up the e-business tax module. Assuming that if you go on starting with your inventory module, then you start setting up your inventory organization structure. So in layman's words, an inventory organization structure could be your warehouse structure, how you transact your item, how you take care of demand and supply, and how you track all your transactions in an inventory. Alright, so to do that, you've got to define something called as inventory organizations, which could be a placeholder for storing all your inventory transactions, all your items, and all the structure of inventory within it. It could also be a physical name of a warehouse. Alright, now within that, you go and define something called as sub-inventories, which could be nothing but, child warehouses. It could be logical warehouse, or it could be a physical warehouse for your transaction, how you want to group it based on your company's policies. Then you go and define your items, and of course within each warehouse you must have locators so as to uniquely store those items within those locators. And then you define lot and serial control, wherein every item will have a specific serial number, or if they are combined into lots, then you define those controls in inventory. Finally, you define your available to promise rules, or something called as ATP. Then you define your planning, forecasting, and replenishment policies of your organization. So that's inventory. Once you're done with your inventory module, you go and proceed ahead and setting up your taxes. So where do you actually go and set up your taxes? You set up your taxes in e-business tax. Now, as far as the purchasing module is concerned, when you buy something from supplier, supplier will levy something called as a sales tax to all the invoices they sent you, right? In some countries it's called as sales tax, in some countries it's called as GST or general sales tax, in some countries it's also called as VAT, which stands for value added tax. So as a part of your e-business tax module, you define your taxes. So taxes are basically defined as a part of regime to rate flow in Oracle e-business tax module, wherein you define your regimes, your tax jurisdictions, your tax rates, tax statuses, tax rules, and so on. Now, if you want to explore more about e-business tax, then I've got a course for there. So you can simply log in and go through that course, which basically covers from scratch the functionalities of e-business tax until you start setting up the taxes. Then as a part of this setup, one of the other base module is system administrator, wherein you go and define the users and the responsibilities and the menus associated with your purchasing implementations. For example, in your purchasing department, if you've got hierarchy, something like purchasing clerk, then you've got purchasing team leader or buyer or senior buyers, or you've got something called as purchasing managers or logistics managers, and then you've got director, and then finally CPO or chief purchasing officer. So for all that, you basically define users for each of those people to log in and do the transactions or view those transactions. So that all that you set up as a part of system administrator module. So you set up the users, and then responsibilities are something that as part of the day-to-day responsibility or job responsibility, they do it. Just as they do it, you set up the same responsibility in Oracle applications for them to access the forms associated with their jobs. And then you use something called as function administrator and user management to have more control over your data access and form access to your purchasing module. Alright, so these are all the base module that you set up as a part of your purchasing implementation. But even at this point of time, you can either proceed ahead for purchasing implementation, or you have to set up another dependent module which is called as account payables module, or simply payables module. So what exactly does this payables module do? So in this slide, if you see out here, the first point I've listed out here, set up all the base modules which I've just described: general ledger, inventory, e-business tax, and system administrator modules. So once you're done with that, then you set up something called as a transactional module, which is called as account payable. So what does account payables actually do? When you buy something from your supplier, you have to pay them, right? So supplier send you the invoices, and those invoices have to be processed in the company. So assuming that if you have signed a contract with the supplier to say that the goods or services will be provided under a specific terms, which could include a fixed price or some other terms and conditions. So you basically check the invoices that supplier has sent complies with that contractual terms and conditions. And once it is done, then you process the invoices and you make payment to the suppliers in the form of check or electronic transfer. So all that part of processing of invoicing and payments is done as a part of account payables module. Now you must note that account payable is a module which very tightly integrates with purchasing, and to be honest with you, it's one of the most successful modules in Oracle, the combination of account payables and purchasing. And I have seen this working flawlessly from probably over 12 years. Alright, so anyway, so once you set up your account payables module, then you're all ready to set up your purchasing. So that's where you go and set up the purchasing module. So what I've done out here, I've simply listed down the key setups required for implementing purchasing module, which includes setting up your document types, or document types could be like purchase orders or blanket purchase agreements, which are also called as BPAs, or contract purchase agreement. So basically each of these document types, you indicate your security and access within your organization, and whether you would like some special approvals or a standard approval. So you indicate all that as a part of your document type, and once you use that document type as a part of your transaction, then whatever you have set up in the transaction document type will be applied to that specific transaction. As an example, if you've set up a document type for purchase order to say that it should follow a standard position approval hierarchy within your organization in purchasing department, and you use that document type for creating a purchase order, and then when you send it for approval, then that purchase order will use the hierarchy which is attached to that document type. Alright, so that's the concept of document types. Then you've got something called as position hierarchies. I believe I've already told you a little bit of hierarchy. So position hierarchies are nothing but the hierarchies within your organization you define so that your document could be routed to approvals based on those position hierarchies. Then you define your buyers and suppliers and associate the buyers with the employees. You set up your supplier you can set it up as a part of purchasing or payables modules, but Oracle has recently come up with a new offering. I should say not very recent, it's a 3 years old offering now, which is a separate module called as Oracle Supplier Lifecycle Management, wherein you control the complete definition of suppliers in that module. Alright, so once you have the suppliers in place and buyers in place, then you set up something called as approval groups and assignments. Approval groups and assignments are something that you set up for your for indicating that a specific buyer what kind of a limit he has for approving a specific document. For example, maybe a buyer has got an approval limit, like he can self-approve a purchase order until a limit of $1,000. But if a purchase order total exceeds $1,000, then it has to go to senior buyer, which will have a limit of say between $2,000 to $5,000. And if it exceeds more, then it goes to purchasing manager and so on. So like that, you can set it up your approval groups wherein you can indicate who can approve what document type, and you can indicate amounts, or you can indicate accounts, or different combinations of approval groups you can make and assign to a specific job or position. Okay, and that based on the setup that you made for the buyers, that will be applied to the buyers automatically. Okay, then there is something called as automatic sourcing. Automatic sourcing is something like when you create a requisition, and if there is a contract in place, then automatically the requisition, once it is approved and a purchase order is created, then automatically the system will apply the contractual terms and conditions from that contract to the newly created purchase order. It could include terms and conditions which are like your pricing for a specific goods or services, or other allied payment terms, or free on board, or any other terms and conditions you have set up. So all that will be applied automatically. That's just an example, but there are a number of other things you can do it as a part of your automatic sourcing. All right, then once you're done with your purchasing setup, then comes the transactions. So you go and set up your transactions, wherein or I should say you go and perform your transactions from the point of view of your Procure to Pay life cycle, wherein you do or you start by creating requisitions. Requisitions can be created in purchasing module itself, or you go and create requisitions as a part of Oracle's separate offering in Oracle iProcurement module. Let's do one thing. I guess it's too much of a theory. Let's do one thing. Let's log into Oracle applications, and while I'm explaining, I'll take you through the screens as well, so you'll get a little idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, now what I'm doing it is I'm logging it as a demonstration user, which is called as operations, and I will go to the purchasing responsibility for Vision Operations USA. So if I scroll down here, there should be something called as Purchasing Vision Operations USA. Yeah, that's the one. Alright, so here I will go and let me just show you to start with. Can you see something called as requisitions? So that's the place you actually go and set up your requisitions. So if I click on requisitions here, it will open a form wherein I can enter my requisitions. Alright, so that's the form basically you enter your requisitions. So once you enter your requisitions either in purchasing or in Procurement and you have them approved, then the next step is what? You go ahead and create quotations. Okay, now again creating or I should say quotations is a step which comes a little later. So first what you do, you start by creating an RFQ. RFQ is request for quotation, which you basically send it to supplier based on the requisitions that you have, and you tell the supplier that give me quotations based on my RFQ. So supplier will provide you quotations, and based on that you negotiate with the supplier and finally create a contract with the supplier, right? So now Oracle gives you flexibility to create the RFQs and quotations as a part of purchasing module itself, but that's at a very primary level, or I should say that it's got very small or very little functionalities in terms of the sourcing process. So the process of creating the RFQs, quotation and contract is also called as sourcing or strategic sourcing. But there is a separate module which is called as Oracle Sourcing, which provides a whole lot of functionalities, and I've got a separate course for that. So if you're interested, you can have a look at that and take that course. But anyways, these are the forms, or these are the RFQ and quotation forms wherein you go and create your RFQs, and once an RFQ is approved and sent it to the supplier can provide a quotation that you can see it over here. Okay, so once you receive all your quotations from your supplier, you do quotation analysis and go ahead and create a contract. So what's a contract? A contract could be a purchase order, it could be a blanket purchase agreement, it could be a contract purchase order, or a planned purchase order. So all these are acronyms that I've used to describe the terms which I just told you. Okay, so these are basically the things that you do as a part of your purchasing module. So coming to the course objective, so by the end of this course you will be able to understand the complete procure to pay lifecycle. So what I've just described is just a summary, but we are going to go in detail and understand each of the component of procure to pay lifecycle, right from starting of requisitions to sourcing to purchasing to finally payments. Then we will set up and implement the procure to pay process. So I'm gonna demonstrate you a number of dependent setups as well, which are a part of, say, your inventory, e-business tax, or general ledger module, or system administrator module. And then we'll also do a number of dependent setups in account payables module before we actually go and set up the purchasing modules. All right, and that's what I've written here. So we've got to do the dependent setups first, and then we set up the purchasing modules, and then once we have set up the purchasing module, as a part of that setup we will also understand document security, document routing and document approval. And once we have done the complete setup, then I'm going to demonstrate you the transactions. So you know, the transactional flow in purchasing in relation to creating and approving requisitions, and then sending those requisitions through RFQs to the suppliers, receiving the quotations from supplier, and finally creating a purchase order and executing or communicating that purchase order to supplier, and supplier fulfilling that purchase order as a part of fulfillment. Then you receive those goods in your inventory. And then we'll also see an integration with Oracle iSupplier portal in terms of supplier collaboration, wherein how supplier can accept a purchase order online, and how supplier can send you advance shipment notices for the shipments that he is planning to send against a purchase order. We'll also understand the different types of receiving, the receiving process flow in Oracle purchasing with integration to inventory. And finally we will understand the integration of purchasing with payables for invoicing and processing payment. So this is a very exhaustive course, but if you have some purchasing background, you will be very easily able to understand the industry terms used in it. But for the benefit of other folks who doesn't have much of a purchasing background, I'm going to take it from the scratch and explain you the process right from the procure to pay lifecycle, and then we gradually move on to understand the dependent setups. Then we'll go on purchasing setups, and finally we'll complete the purchase to pay flow.